Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. Do you want to increase conversions by as much as 54% for your Shopify store? Now you can with Alialearn. Reward new site visitors for learning about your products and brands through Alia's engaging on-site app. Want to find out more? Alialearn are offering an exclusive 1-month free trial for WWS listeners. To claim your free offer, go to alialearn.com/winningwithshopify and book a consultation. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, it's such a pleasure that you've chosen to click on the pinkest icon you've ever seen in your lives. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you listening to us. If you've been tuning in for a while, it's great to have you back. You guys have been so adamant this year that you're going to listen to us pretty much every week. We've been looking at the stats. We're obviously heading towards the end of the year now. We're well into, we're just entering December, which is quite exciting, and entering peak. I hope Black Friday's been successful for you all. At the time of recording this, Black Friday hadn't actually happened yet. It was just about to, but it hadn't quite happened. So we don't know what's going to go on yet. But yeah, I've cancelled all my social plans for the next 3 or 4 days. Today we're kicking off a new series, which is going to be very exciting. If I want to pose you guys a very quick question, whatever your conversion rate is at the moment, flip that on its head and think about the percentage of people that don't buy from you. So if you've got a really good conversion rate, 3, 4, 5%, imagine the 95 that don't buy from you. Well, we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization this month, which is a really exciting topic and something that's very close to my heart because we do a lot of this for our clients. Because obviously, if we could make more in conversion from the advertising my agency does, we're going to get a lot more revenue coming in and a lot of new customers are going to make us look fantastic. Don't worry, I'm not the only person talking this month. We've got a very, very special sponsor called Alia, which is very exciting. They've got their own platform, they've got their own Shopify app, and we're going to talk about that a lot today. And joining me to talk about that is the founder of Alia, which is Cory. So Cory, welcome to the show.
Hey Nick, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff. Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I'm super excited for our conversation today and also talking to a couple of your merchants over the next few weeks as well, which is going to be exciting. But Cory, people will be sitting there going, okay, I don't really understand conversion rate. I see it in my analytics. I've never heard of you guys. I don't know what's going on. What's your background, Cory? And then tell us a little bit about Alia as well.
Yeah, for sure. So Alia is a conversion app for your Shopify store, which essentially allows you to educate customers through interactive lessons on your store and then reward them for learning. So our big thing is that customer education is really important and can help drive a lot more conversions than you're doing traditionally. But it's often not as engaging or exciting as it could be. So what we do is incentivize shoppers to learn about your brand and what makes you special, to go make that first purchase or a returning one, but primarily that first purchase. And the story of Alia kind of started, one of my co-founders, he was helping his mom on her Shopify store. And the big thing for her was that she could easily sell her products in person when she could convey the value behind them and get customers to that kind of aha moment. But when that came online, it became increasingly difficult. So him being a developer and one of our other co-founders being a developer and me with a bit of experience, we came together and it helped put out this app to help merchants kind of get their shoppers to that aha moment and convert more visitors.
Awesome. And I think for many years now, a lot of us in the e-commerce world, we've been talking about how can we bring the physical face-to-face shop journey to e-commerce. The sort of, you're greeted at the shop, and if it's a nice enough shop, would you like a tea or a coffee, sir? Or I don't know if you guys get offered tea as much in the US as we do in the UK. It's a very British drink, but yeah, certainly that whole experience. What are you looking for today? And is there anything I can help you with? Or you want a washing machine? Yeah, follow me over here. It's these. Would you like some help? Do you just want to browse? Or yeah, I can talk you through them. Like your first time home buyer. This is all very new to you, and that whole experience. I think that's amazing. But first of all, talk us through that interactive learning process then. So what does that actually look like on the website itself?
Yeah, I definitely encourage anybody listening to go take a look at our website just to see what the experience is. But essentially, you can envision it like a short slideshow almost that's filled with text, image, and video. And there's different lessons that relate to your brand that are customizable. So you as a merchant, you could have a lesson about your origin story that talks about what made you want to start the company, what's your unique insight that made you want to do it. And then there could be another lesson that could relate to your bestseller or a new product that talks about the features. It could highlight the amount of reviews that you've gotten or a certain review that stood out. And what's interesting is that you can put these lessons across your entire site and put different lessons on different pages. So as somebody's going through and learning about in these short interactive content, whether that be for a minute, 2 minutes, they can get 15% off after they complete that lesson. And you could put it on all these different pages, and choose where exactly you want to educate and engage customers. And it is customizable. It's either a widget or a button right now. So you can embed it directly into your page or put it as a more traditional widget as well.
Amazing. And I certainly find that when we do customer feedback surveys, asking them like, how much do you know about the business and the brand, especially people that have bought like every month for the last 3 or 4 years, is a really dedicated customer. And then you're like, are you aware of how the business was founded? Nope. Do you know how we make our products? Nope. And it's like, if you did know, imagine what exactly as you guys are saying, and how compelling it is when we look at the figures on your site as well. How much better that is. And for anyone listening, there is a link to their site in the description, whatever platform you're on. If not, Cory, do you want to just read out the website URL to go and watch that video and see the product in action?
Yeah, it's alialearn.com. So ALIA learn.com. You can see it there as well. And that's a good point actually about that people know the founding story, because if back to that example of being in person, those loyal customers that come into your store very often in person, they will all know your founding story and know you personally as a person, but also just everything about your brand and your products. And those kind of customers become your evangelists almost. And it's hard to create those customer evangelists online. And we like to view our app as kind of like the foundation of creating those evangelists, because we're really there to convert first-time visitors, but it's getting them off on the right first step to where they understand the brand and the products. And then you can go out and further build out that relationship, knowing that now they have a great understanding of your brand and your products.
Yeah. And what kind of call to action would you put on the video itself then? Would you literally say get 15% off for watching our founder's video, or for learning a bit more about our industry, or learning about our business, or our kind of way we do stuff? What would you actually put on the webpage? Assume they're on a product or a collection, and landed from SEO or PPC or Facebook or something. What's the actual call to kind of, almost like the call to arms, come and do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a mix across clients. It really depends on, honestly, their brand and who the clients that they're trying, or the shoppers that they're targeting. It's usually a variation of saying learn and get 15% off, play and get 15% off, sometimes even just get 15% off. But we also have like a larger CTA that says learn about what makes us special, X store special, and get this discount. So it really just depends on the brand and what fits in with their unique style as well.
Nice. That's awesome. And I guess the really big question people are going to be sitting there thinking about right now is, okay, you've mentioned 15% off every time. Are there other things you could offer rather than just the discount, or do you find that discount is the thing that works best as an incentive?
Yeah, at the moment we offer just discounts in terms of dollar and percentage off. Down the road, we want to incorporate more exclusive offers and things along those lines that you could incentivize people beyond just discounts, because I know some merchants also might dilute their brand or something along those lines. In terms of it working though, our average conversion rate after somebody starts a lesson on one of our client sites is around 30%. It's usually between 20 to 30%. So if somebody starts a lesson using Alia on your site, about 1/3 will purchase on average. And we have some amazing case studies on our website that highlight that as well. But yeah, back to your question, it's primarily just discounts at the moment.
Do you, and a slightly hypothetical question as opposed to a data-driven one, do you think most people then purchase afterwards because they almost feel like they've earned that discount, so that 15% off or the dollars off? It's like, I've been through this now, I'll be stupid not to buy it because I've put all the effort in. It's like I deserve the reward now.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. It's one that we've definitely been asked before. It's like, what's the trade-off between people being educated and them feeling like, all right, I just did all this work, now let me do it. I think it's a mix of that, because at the end of the day, most of the lessons are really only about a minute. And I think a big part of it is that you feel more affinity for the brand now that you've learned about them. And you're getting, again, going back to that aha moment, they're starting to realize the value of the product more and more because they're learning about it. Like, I think if you go out and you shop and you start to read product descriptions and read the About Us page and read blogs, you start to have more conviction in making that purchase, especially for larger sales cycle products. Like, we just posted a case study for one of our clients called Innovet Pet, and they essentially sell pet accessories and equipment. And one of their big products is CBD oils for pets. And their big testimonial was that before it took 10 to 16 visits to convert a user, which isn't surprising because one, it's your dog that you're giving that to, and it's also a pretty native product with CBD. And then now with Alia, it's usually between 1 to 2 visits. So bringing that time down because they're getting more trust, more affinity, and realizing the value, especially for a nascent product like that, is really where it comes into play.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting that, and I think you make a really good point about pets. I think pets, children, or even ourselves, anything that we're gonna. I mean, all you need to do is take one look at any of the regulators in any of our, any of our various territories we work in, like the medical regulators, food health and safety. Like you can't even open a restaurant in a normal sort of first world country now without having so many certificates and going through hoops of like the food we sell is going to be safe. And then the whole actual business begins of like, what food is it? How do we market it? How do we convince people to come back? How do we price it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's no surprise that example of, with pets and CBD products of going, they're telling me it's going to work and it's going to be a really good product for my dog. But actually, there's a massive, I'd call it a barrier to entry. There's a massive barrier that you have to get the customer to, or you have to break through for the customer to buy it. Do you think your software and your product then, do you think it works better when it's got that higher barrier where actually it does need a bit of explaining, it needs a bit of buy-in from the customer versus a product that perhaps is just, an apology if anyone sells these, like an iPhone case or something where it's like, I put in my iPhone make and model, I like the look of that case, I'm going to buy it. It's a very one, maybe at maximum two visit purchase.
Yeah, I think it's definitely more catered towards, we like to define it as just like branded stores. It doesn't necessarily have to be these very complicated products. One of our best performing clients actually is Firebelly Tea, which is co-founded by Harley Finkelstein, the president of Shopify, and then David Siegel, who used to found David's Tea. And with that store, I mean, they're a very unique brand, no doubt, but it is tea at the end of the day. Like that is the product. It's not something as complicated as maybe CBD oil, or one of our other companies is Ionic Prosthetics for pets. So like very complicated products. And their average conversion rate, we're posting their case study hopefully in the next few weeks, is around 32%. I think to their point, the big thing that they're conveying is the unique aspects of their brand and not necessarily super complex things about their products. So they talk a lot about the natural flavorings that they use as compared to like traditional tea. Also a lot of the sustainability practices that they incorporate. And just conveying that value makes somebody realize, now I can see why this product is probably worth a bit more than the average tea that I go and get at the market. So it's really just conveying that value to your customers. And it doesn't always have to be these super complex products as well.
I love that example. I think it's a really good example actually of where the tea market, there are so many different brands of tea you could buy. And actually, we've worked, and she's been on the show before, Rare Tea Company. We had Henrietta on, and she was talking actually that she used to work for the big tea manufacturers. And then she went and met the farmers who were growing the tea. And she was like, these conditions are horrendous. And then looked at the makeup of the standard tea bag. They're changing now. And when I say now, as in like the last 2 or 3 years. But a lot of them have plastic in. And so I think actually there's such a compelling story. I'm not surprised at all that there's 32% conversion rate. And I'm assuming that's once somebody's watched the video, is it? Or once they've been through the learning?
Yeah, started the lesson because it's not only video. It's a mix at the merchant's discretion of like text, image, and video. Yeah.
Nice. But there's no surprise on that at all. I mean, when I've been telling, it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know, and as soon as you tell people certain facts, you can't forget that fact. Like if somebody struggles with a problem and you say, I used to have that, I use this, now I never have that. The person that's in pain or has that problem or that challenge is like, you can't not think about that thing now. And it's the same with tea. I used to drink tea like crazy until I realized this 30% of the tea bag or something was like plastic. I was like, I don't want to be drinking that. Like that sounds horrendous. That's really bad for me. That can make me really ill. So now I drink mostly loosely for biodegradable tea bags stuff, which most people provide now. But Henrietta's been on this mission, sounds like these guys as well, since since way back when, trying to achieve that. I think the other thing that I want to talk about a little bit, and this is it's kind of a bigger picture for me about USPs. What you've just described with that tea example is a very compelling story. And it's the story of the brand. And when people know that story, again, I'm not surprised. More people want to engage, more people want to buy from them because they get the story. And I think actually when I talk about USPs, I always emphasize the U in USPs because I think a lot of people have selling points. Not a lot of them are unique. And that's where I think it's important to look at your business and go, what is my differentiator? So I guess the question really is, how much more difficult do you think it is across the board for brands, aside from your software for a sec, how much more difficult do you think it is for brands where they don't have a compelling story, where it is just like my old business was just buy crates of stuff from Alibaba, I've stuck my logo on the side and bang, let's sell it. I didn't have a story, I have no ethics, there was nothing, it was a good factory and I checked them out before I bought anything, but there was no reason, I wasn't changing the world, I wasn't solving anything. How much of a difference have you found in your experience that makes having that story, having that, this is what we're setting out to do, almost like a mission?
Yeah, it's definitely a big factor. I think in terms of your ability to convey the value of your products, a lot of it comes back to the story, or at least some aspect, like you said, that is unique compared to peers. And if it's not, then at that point, you're really just competing on price, and it's not a very fun game to play if your only thing you're competing with is just trying to be less than your other peers that you're fighting against. But I think that our belief, at least at Alia, is that every company has some sort of story to tell, even if you don't realize it at the time, whether that relates to your products, your manufacturing, how you package it, even there could be very small nuanced things that allow you to have some differentiator compared to your competitors, because there's no way that your story for why you started it as well is that much different than your peers. But I think the strongest USPs do come down to your products a lot of the time, and the brand ethos that you at least give out, which that part does relate to your story, but your story is just one component. And the strongest ones really are your product and what seriously differentiates your products from peers.
Absolutely. I love that. I've written it down. Everybody has a story. I think it's so important to recognize that. No business. I mean, you run your company, I run my company. None of us do this. I mean, there is a level of fun, but none of us would be doing this purely for fun. There has to be something deeper and more meaningful. Otherwise, you just wouldn't put up with all the nonsense that you have to with... I won't list any of those things because I don't want to annoy anyone who works for me. But I think the point being is like, I love the fact they're saying everybody has a story. It's just working out what. So I guess the important question is, how involved do you guys get in the content that goes out on those things? Do you just kind of provide the tech and go, yeah, you can put whatever you want on? Or actually, do you do a bit of a workshop with people and say, and I know this is leading on to something we spoke about before we start recording as well, but you guys are going to offer to do a little bit more of this as well with all of you guys listening at the moment. But talk us through that process of actually finding out what should we put in here? What should the learning process for each business be? How do you decide that?
Right. So there's basically three options that as a merchant, you can choose for the content. The first one is generating them yourself. And I think for the most part, that's the one that we recommend the most, especially for larger clients that really have some great content already that they can just transfer over to the smaller platform. The second one is that we have a feature that allows you to generate lessons automatically using AI. It's still a pretty new feature. So we recommend it maybe for your first lesson or just to try it out, but it really doesn't take that much time to set up a lesson. And then the third option, which ties into the offer for this show, is that we at our team use our expertise from what we've seen work across all of our clients to help build out those lessons. And that'll come with a 1-month free trial as well. So we'll basically do a consultation call, hop on, show you a demo of the product, show you some lessons that we've generated about interesting aspects of your brand. And the best ones is usually where we kind of come together and collaborate for 30 minutes and figure out what avenues of your business make the most sense. Because obviously you as the owner of the store or the e-commerce manager and marketing manager know your business the best. So we'll collaborate usually with our clients and figure out what areas are the best to highlight and talk about.
Nice. And if anyone wants that link, by the way, I'm not very salesy and I don't push stuff generally, but this really is an awesome thing to do, I think. It's an hour or 30 minutes or whatever of your time to talk to these guys. We're going to put a link straight to that in the description as well. If you can't get that, just go to winningwithshopify.com. Drop us a note. It comes through to Byron and myself and a couple of the other team as well. We'll get back to you as quickly as possible and send you a link to that as well. But yeah, it's only for Winning with Shopify listeners. So so make sure you make the most of that. I think an important point though, just kind of bringing it back to what we're talking about with conversion rate and setting these lessons up then is, you've obviously got where people can upload their own content. You've got the AI lessons as well, where they can use AI to generate those. How are you, and we're just not go too far down the AI rabbit hole here, because it really is that at the moment. It's an enormous warren of tunnels. How are you guys finding that AI is working for you? Like, is it producing good content? Does it feel like do you feel like you can keep the brand authenticity in there, or have you made it kind of a bit of, you put some stuff in, it does some stuff, and it's a bit of a hybrid approach?
Right. Yeah. At the moment, the way I describe it as a feature is, for us at least, is really to get people to see the aha moment in our product. And when they're going through onboarding, if it's not us on a call with them, getting them to see, because it's a pretty native concept having the Alia on your store and the idea of rewarding customer education, is to get them to see what the lesson looks like, the first example, and to be like, oh, okay, now I can kind of see what exactly Alia is doing. And then some clients started using it more and more, so we built out the feature to just be able to generate it whenever you want. Down the road, what we really want to have it be is a lot more integral to the lesson creation process. So we actually just released basically our biggest update to the app yet, which was allowing you to put different lessons on different pages across your store, and also having different rewards for different products at those points. So you could have a lesson about a specific product on a product page, and then the discount is only for that product. And then you could have a separate lesson about your origin story on your About Us page and reward somebody for a general store-wide discount. So being able to just choose where and how you put it. And down the road, we think that because there's so many places you could put different lessons, especially for larger clients, using AI to generate those lessons, at least initially, for your entire product collection or something like that, is where we kind of see it going. Just at the moment right now, it's really just to get merchants to realize the value in the lessons, and just be like, oh, okay, this is a cool concept, and I'll try it out.
Yeah. I love that new feature you're just talking about, actually, where it's different lessons across the site. I think going back to just the initial like brand story, go and watch our brand story and we'll give you a discount, using that as a really simple example, and then featuring some lessons throughout the journey or later. I think there's a really interesting point here to go that actually, if you asked every customer that had ever been on a Shopify store, what does the brand mean to you? Why did you buy it? And what is it about that brand that you love? There'll be similarities, but you'll probably find that actually there's at least, in a 5,000 person survey, 5,000 people who filled out a survey, you probably got at least 1,000 to 2,000 completely different ideas in there, which is why I always say to clients, use a multiple choice in your surveys. It's much easier to get some concrete data to say which one of the 5 relates the most to you, or tick any of the 10 that you think are important. So I think actually, customizing it based on what's going on, I think is important, because we find it again when we look in customer data of, who's clicking on campaign A, campaign B, and campaign C in advertising. They're very different people and they're buying very different things. And actually it means that you can become, as a store starts, it's a very small store and probably only sells one range of products or one specific niche of products, but it will keep growing. But actually every store can become a bit more of a broad church. And this is a good way of keeping it specific to whatever your needs are and whoever you are as well. If you think about going to a pharmacy, for example, you go to a pharmacy because you've got some sort of medical problem and they can help, or the doctor's told you to go and get something specific. How many different products are there in there? And also, I always find it amazing, if you look at the age demographic of people queuing at a pharmacy, you have babies that are like a month or two old, up to people who are like in their 90s or even over 100 years old in some parts of the world. And you just have this enormous breadth of people, but the pharmacy is different against that shop experience. It's different to every single person. The elderly person will say, I have no idea what I want. The doctor wrote that on a piece of paper for me and said, I need this. So you're going to get that. Whereas the mother of the baby might go, my baby's got this, this, and this. I'm quite tuned up on all of this because I care and love for this baby so much. I need these exact products. It's the same person behind the desk, but can help all these different people. So I think having those different lessons, I think, is really, really key. Yeah. And I'm sure it doesn't end at just that, does it? There must be so much more you're thinking about with your clients and your merchants about content, and going, people that are buying this are much more interested in this, so the lesson should be this, and then we can get that conversion rate up at the end of it.
Yeah, that's a huge point, honestly. And like that idea of personalizing the entire shopper experience is kind of our North Star in terms of where we're going. And with this new update, I forgot to mention as well, is that, so within lessons, you can ask questions as well. And most merchants do. You ask either content questions or survey questions, and it's the same format, but one is basically just after you show content about a product, for example, you could ask something about what you just showed them. Or, which is what most merchants use, is using a survey question within it. It's like a multiple choice question, and it's really just to collect pre-purchase data. And a lot of our merchants use this to either for internal decisions. So for that Fire Belly example, we just talked to them and they said that one of their questions is, what's your favorite tea? And they were able to see all that response data across all their shoppers. And they found out that black tea was a huge response one for them. And they started investing and looking more into black tea products as well. So that's the first part, is that it can help drive internal decisions. The other one is that it can help personalize your marketing as well. So based off that response data that you get, you can then go into Klaviyo or your email marketing and see that segmented results automatically. So if you as a shopper went on to Firebelly and the questions were, is this your first time buying tea? And then you said, but I'm interested in black tea and I heard about you through Facebook. You could then go into Klaviyo and send off an email marketing to that specific shopper segment with that personalized aspect. And you can ask very granular questions because you also get their email at the end of the Alia flow. So it's about personalizing those future campaigns as well. And I'm rambling a bit here, but then the last part of it is that with those questions, it'll dynamically change the content that you're showing. So as you're learning through those lessons and you say, I'm most interested in black tea, the next lesson or the next piece of content that it'll show you can relate to black tea and dig into that more. So personalizing what you're learning based off how you're responding, and then also personalizing that email marketing. So it's a big point for us is that every shopping experience is different for each individual, but it's often not the case for a lot of stores. So we're trying to make that funnel unique for every single shopper experience.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think the personalization thing is so exciting. I mean, they won't mind me saying this, and if you guys are listening, you know who you are. I won't name you by name, but hello. But yeah, we got a client that sells used car parts for a few different kind of old school sports cars, mostly German brands. And these guys, they've asked me to look at their email, and I've looked at it, and they basically send one set of emails out to mechanics who do this professionally. They're the trade customers, and they send one out to what they call retail customers. And I was sort of looking at this and immediately going, right, we're missing a massive trick here. Like, I don't do email; it's not my profession, but I know more than most. So we, looked in their Klaviyo account and started looking at segmentation, and what the thing they're missing, and the thing that I've been saying to them, and they're working on at the moment, is exactly what you've just described. We don't know who our customers are, and we don't know what we want to know about them. We don't know what there is to know about them. So some of the questions we put in a sort of survey, which we're still umming and ahhing whether we should send it out. It's a bigger picture than just, send a survey and see what happens. But some of the survey questions we're looking at is like, do you buy parts from us because something's broken, because you want to optimize something, or because you're doing a restoration project? And we're trying to see, is that a good way to put our customers in 3 buckets? Which then means actually, come back to what you were saying about learning. If we put them through a sort of learning survey, but ask them questions throughout that learning process, going, we're going to give you 15% off your next order if you go through this and hear more about the brand and what we're trying to achieve as a business, how we want to help you as customers get the parts you need when you need them at a decent price, etc., etc. Because at the moment they've got a really cool background to the brand, but the brand itself doesn't really come across. People don't know anything about them. They just go, oh, yeah, I've bought from those guys before, and they just go on their website and buy again, or they'll just go on Google and go, oh, I've bought from all 5 of these people advertising to me. That's the right product, right? Click it. So we've done loads of work on our Google Shopping feed to make it as specific as possible. We've almost doubled the ROI this year, which has been fantastic.
Wow.
And that's since sort of March, April, just doing that work. But I think that being able to segment email and segment customer bases, and then even use those audiences in advertising for what we're doing to then kind of keep that wheel turning as much as possible, I think sounds fantastic. I imagine your merchants must get such good learnings out of some of that information. You then feed back going, of everybody that filled out this learning program, this is what we've learned from them.
Yeah, it's huge. And especially because it's primarily pre-purchase data for the most part, because a lot of it is us targeting first-time visitors. It's kind of a black box pre-purchase data for the most part. Like getting a post-purchase survey, you will get some results, especially a lot of the times with a discount that you might reward after. But getting first-time visitors to a store to engage and fill out responses, it is a lot easier when you're also sharing something about your brand to build that trust and affinity, because they're not super inclined to want to answer these survey questions. But as they're learning about you and your story and also the products, they're a lot more inclined to give away their information as well, or make that exchange. And that helps a lot shine light on like attribution as well for marketing, where they're coming from. But also just a lot of those decisions that they can make, and personalizing to convert that other 98% that you were talking about that don't convert on that first time visit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things I've written down here, which I think is quite an important point to talk about, is I've put that this trumps normal conversion rate optimization. And what I mean by that is, normally we're looking at like, could we change the color of the button? Could we add the guarantee warranty information to the cart? So people go like, oh, I get a 2-year guarantee on this t-shirt. Great, I'm going to buy it. Let's go. You know, it's the kind of like those little nudges to try and get them through the checkout, or, if they're eligible for a code, automatically chuck the code in. trying to get people to make that first purchase. Whereas this kind of trumps that, because you've shown them so much about the brand that they can really emotively buy into it, and they've engaged with that learning process. That actually, and don't take this away as a learning, anyone that's listening, your website could be rubbish, but because people are bought in now to the ethos of the business, and like you were saying, everyone's got a story to tell, because they can buy into that story now, which it is difficult to get that story across just in standard HTML code and images and even a video. This is so much more engaging that. It almost trumps the whole SEO journey. So you don't need to answer this with a yes or no if you don't want. But do you find that some merchants that don't have the strongest e-commerce journey, they don't have the sleekest design, the fastest page speed, do you find actually these guys benefit massively? Because once somebody knows about this business and can buy into it, actually they can put up with a bit of bad friction during the checkout process or during the add to basket or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I honestly haven't given it too much thought, but like just while you're saying that, like there's no doubt that a few merchants just like pop to mind. And
you don't need to name them, don't worry.
No, I definitely won't. I think the big thing is that it kind of streamlines your content, and it's a lot easier to set up than making a beautiful landing page or a beautiful page on your website, which requires a lot of that nuance changing and CRO. Versus in our case, it's really just putting the content onto your site and just talking about your brand like you might do every day, and doing it in a pretty streamlined format rather than having to build something out entirely from scratch or using a landing page builder. And it just makes that whole process easier, and it's always going to look aesthetic for the most part because it's kind of a template, which makes it, again, just much easier than a traditional A/B test or doing that entire CRO process, and a lot cheaper as well.
Yeah. I find it was quite easy for, like, we do them for free for some of our clients. Certainly some of the larger spends, or the ones that, being brutally honest, the ones we want to scale up, we're like, oh, let's get the conversion rate up, because if we do that, ROI goes up and they're going to give us more budget. You know, it's the way it works. It's like, if I doubled my budget, would I get double the revenue? Yes, and you're profitable right now. Let's go. That's quite a nice. Sorry, the lights keep coming on and off here, but that's fine. They're on a sensor, so every time I wave my arm too much, they suddenly pop on. So anyone who keeps thinking I've just changed my studio, I haven't touched anything. But yeah, I think the whole process of that, it's often the implementation bit that's expensive. And the other thing that's inexpensive is if you do, as you say, A/B testing, if you test kind of like product page version A and product page version B, which one gets us selling more, it's quite difficult then to like go through the data. And the worst thing is you put all that time and energy in, and either something was either conclusively better the way it was, it's not actually been a waste of time, you've learned something, but it's still like you get to the end of the whole process and have paid some money and it's not done anything. Or you find it's inconclusive data. You're like, actually there was, the new version looks better, but 2 orders out of 500 skewed the whole thing. 2 people made massive purchases. So we now need to run it for like 6 months to see if we get those 2 orders every month, to see if it's going to work. And so I think doing something like this is such a game changer that, I guess worst case scenario, it's going to pop up saying 15% off if you engage or go through our learning process or whatever the call to action on that is. I guess the worst case scenario is they just go, no, I'm not doing that. Do you think that if they don't do it, do you think it is going to lower conversion rate? Because then they're like, oh, you're offering me 15% off, but I've got to go through this little academy thing. Do you find that happens, or do you think actually customers are waiting to learn from the merchant? So actually it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think it ever drops the conversion rate, like from what we've seen. And for a relatively young company, we've published a lot of case studies. Like we try to at least put out one a week. And that's really been, for the last few weeks, that's kind of been what we've been doing. And we've never seriously seen a decline that's attributable to us, at least. And what's good is that our funnel pretty much stays the exact same across most merchants. There's very little deviation in terms of clicks to actual driven orders, which I think is a good indication that there's not really that drop off. And I think a brand honestly knows best in terms of whether or not it's a good place to have our app on their website or how they want it, because a widget on every website is not obviously the best avenue. And sometimes it's better to put it as a button on a product page, or just put it on a button on one blog. Like we have some clients that will only put us on some of their highest traffic blogs just to convert visitors that are learning more, and they can kind of quiz their knowledge. I think that's the big thing, is that it really just depends on the brand and where they want to put us. And they usually know best in terms of preventing any unwanted unconversions, I guess.
That is interesting, because as you said, blogs, the first thing that sprung to mind to me is, we never advertise them on PPC because they won't convert. So if we put a lot of Google ads or Meta ads or something like that, then people aren't converting from that. The second thing that sprung to mind as well then is SEO. We spend so much time, all of us, writing SEO articles and going, oh, people are Googling how to fix that problem on an email inbox. Right, I'll solve the problem, put it on my IT company's blog, and see what sort of response we get. But then people don't convert. And I think actually it's quite a nice way of going like, on a blog post, 15% off if you go through our learning process or come and learn a little bit more about this, because they've got an interest. And they're probably, especially if they're taking the time out to read blogs or try and find a solution to a problem, or especially the best blogs are the ones that when you get loads of people engaging, where it's just like, spring, summer recommendations. And it's just like, we're just recommending that actually pink's going to be in fashion this year for men. Pink shirts are going to be in fashion. They were getting more and more popular last year. We're selling more and more of them, and we think they're going to be popular this year. Turning that into a sort of, well, look, you're eagerly learning about fashion because you're reading this article. It's quite a nice link up. And then it's like, and here's the discount. You know loads about us now, and you're quite compelled to help support our cause and our story and become part of that story. So I think, blogs make a lot of sense, I think, as a good place to put it in. Like, no reason why you couldn't put them in the middle of a buying guide or a sizing chart. I mean, how many of us have always Googled like European to US to UK sizes when buying products online, that kind of thing. There's certainly a lot of good use cases, I think, that I imagine your merchants are using.
Absolutely, yeah. And another big one actually is custom landing pages as well for traffic that's inbound. So whether that be blogs, like you mentioned, or another landing page that they built out specifically for a certain channel, putting us onto that page specifically for where the lessons relate to where they might be coming from. So an example could be if you're running a LinkedIn ad for like pink shirts for men, and you click on it and then get redirected to that landing page or that product page, a lesson talking more about the nuances of that product, specifically for people that got redirected on the bottom of the funnel there. To help convert them. That's another use case which can help your return on ad spend or any other source that you're coming from, or just convert more visitors to your high traffic blogs.
Awesome. And I think certainly anyone listening who's like not started yet, or you're quite new to this, you're thinking like, I might start a blog, or I might start some buying guides or some custom landing pages, as we say. Just have a think about this for a second. Hardly anyone converts on blogs and buying guides stuff when they land. Custom landing page is a bit different because obviously you're making it to be a conversion driver. But actually, if you imagine that everyone that's landing on your blogs is kind of learning stuff, it's a good bit of brand awareness, but they're not purchasing, and you can see that in GA4, landing page, not purchasing. This is actually sounds like a really good tool that, again, as you say, your merchants are using to actually change that, because you've paid for that traffic to come in, or you've paid for the content to be created, or to run the whole business. So actually, if you start analysing your website and going, where have I got dead spots, where I've got people coming into the site, I've got traffic here, but they're not converting, I think trying tools like this or anything else you can think up creatively. We did do one, which, not saying your software isn't great at all. I think it sounds like an amazing product. But we did one that completely shocked me, where we just went through every single blog post, and after the first or second paragraph, we just put a button in that said, view the collection. That was it. And whatever blog post it was about, so if that was talking about pushchairs, it goes to the pushchair collection. If it was talking about jumpers, jumper collection. If it was talking about cars, car collection. Whatever it is, the collection on Shopify. Just by adding that, we saw revenue lift dramatically. We went from almost no sales to suddenly it was like, I think it was like 0.5% of all blog traffic suddenly converting. And it was like, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And of course, that total conversion lifted a little bit as well. We just added a button in the middle. Nice and simple. So if you do something as advanced as this, and get people to go through that learning process, then it sounds like such a good driver. And I guess the other thing to think about as well is getting them to engage as much as possible on that first page they land on, like engaging with your software. Engaging more on that first page is brilliant, because it's when people start clicking off that they get lost, or they forget what they're looking for, or it's, as I say, the amount of people that would read a blog post and then just leave the website. If you can hook them in, that's actually going to help SEO, because one of the things Google hates on SEO is bounce rates. That's where you send traffic into a site, they read the article, they look at one product and bounce straight back out. So having a way of engaging them, you're probably going to see an uplift in SEO, because you're not going to have that bounce happening so often. It's one of the biggest metrics that Google looks at, because it doesn't want to send traffic to a site that people clearly aren't enjoying, and they appear back on Google faster than they would even be able to read like a third of the article. So I think that's really key.
And I believe time spent on site is also a big one as well, right? Not just bouncing off, but also like more minutes spent, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's important for SEO. We have found there is a bit of a tipping point, and it's product dependent, it's business dependent, but there is a tipping point where actually if you're on a store that's only got 10 products, if people spend over sort of 5-6 minutes on that store, it tends to go negative. We've actually split that in the data to go, These people now are just reading free content, downloading free guides, trying to get discounts. They're not good customers, let's be honest.
Right.
So sometimes there is a kind of sweet spot, but I imagine your tool would actually warp that sweet spot. You'd almost have to look at them at people that did engage with it and people that didn't, and almost look at them completely separately. Because the ones that did, their time on site is going to be dramatically higher. But what you don't want to lose sight of is the ones that spend too long on site that you're paying to bring in, don't engage with your tool, and they're just on site and not buying stuff. Like that's another. It's a bit like email. I always look at how are we going to segment the data to find who's buying, who's not buying, and then work out what we need to do with the ones that aren't buying, or scale up the ones that are.
Right. Yeah. That's really interesting, honestly. We should definitely look into that more in terms of conveying that value to merchants potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, look, we'll bring things to a close there, Cory. I really appreciate your time today. If people want to reach out, we mentioned the website and stuff already. Just remind us, what are your social channels? What's the website? And how can people get in touch if they want to come and check out the tool?
Yeah, so the website is alialearn.com, ALIA learn.com. There you can book a custom demo as well, but for all the listeners, I would just go to the URL below to that landing page, and then book the free consultation, plus 1 month free as well if you choose to use Alia. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. It's just Alia as well, ALIA. Also Instagram, Alialearn as well. We'd recommend website and LinkedIn the most, but yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Awesome. Well, Cory, I really appreciate your time. It's been great to chat. And as always, I've got a whole page of learnings I've written down while I've been talking. So thank you very much.
You as well. Thank you, Nick.
Cool, you're very welcome. And for everybody listening, as I say, these guys are sponsoring the whole month. So we're going to talk to a couple of their merchants and exploring this topic a little bit further. So if you're listening and thinking like, oh, I'm not quite ready to have that consultation, I'm not quite ready to have a month free or to jump in, I don't quite understand how the tool works. A, go and check it out before next week. And B, next week we're going to have one of their merchants on, and I think another merchant the week after as well. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to find out how they've been using the tool, how it fits into wider marketing as well. Stay tuned. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review. And thanks again for tuning in.